Interesting, I was reading Helen Keller's autobiography yesterday, and it's very short and it's an very powerful work. And it's just I'd really recommend reading it. It's one of the most powerful things I've ever read, because she was deaf, dumb, and blind, and it's just her experience of her awakening, the awakening of her consciousness. One of the things she said in there I thought was very beautiful. She said that she became deaf, dumb, and blind from a scarlet fever that she got in childhood. So she wasn't born that way. And it's interesting because she said that even though she was 19 months old when it happened, she said the fact that she could still remember what a tree looked like was enough for her when she felt a tree. Just that she'd seen it one time in her life. She said even though she was only less than 2 years old, and she could still remember that blessing of just having seen a tree, that was enough for her, that she'd seen it. That's an amazing thing, just the ni'mah of the eye, the human eye, is just so awesome. Anyway, she mentioned in there that she said there's no slave in this world that didn't have a king somewhere in his ancestry. And there's no king that didn't have a slave somewhere in his ancestry. Right? So, I mean, it's interesting, people, the ups and downs of the world, right? So everybody probably somewhere along the line, right, has, their great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather or something was the king of the roost. And now they're nothing. Or somebody who's now the king of the roost, at one time down the line, one of their ancestors was a servant in somebody's house. Get this and get that. And this is dunya. So when you see the nature of dunya is that nothing is permanent. And I'll tell you, when you read the history of the Arabs, the vicissitudes of Arab rulers is just amazing. And if you read like Al-Mansur, the history of Al-Mansur was a Khalifa. He wasn't a Khalifa actually. He was a minister in Andalusia, and he was a mediocre student in the madrasa, but he was very ambitious, and he ingratiated himself, got into the palace, got this one of the really strong women in the palace to one of the mothers of a Khalifa to be. He enamored himself of her, and she put him in these positions. And there was one minister who was the most powerful minister in there that everybody feared. And Al-Mansur succeeded in having him in the end imprisoned. And he was one of the wealthiest people in Cordoba, and he ended up a pauper, dying in rags in the prison there. And you can imagine that man's life, right? And so it's just the nature of the dunya is like that. So recognizing no harm and no benefit except from Allah,